Hello and welcome to the Isolated 8 podcast. So before we get into this week's episode, I just wanted to let you know about a couple of things. First of all, I had a bit of a ban on Instagram. So Instagram decided that they thought I was trying to follow too many people, whether I may have got third-party help, which wasn't the case, but I was a busy boy and my fingers were twitching. So I got a ban for a week. So it's given me time to have a look at the Instagram page and really build a new one, to be fair. So I've been contacting most of the people that are going to be guests through Instagram. So I wanted a nice, slick new page. I've kept Facebook as the journey, as the progression, so you can see from start to finish how it was to how it is. And I'm hoping that you can see some progression there. But Instagram, when I'm contacting people, I want it to be slick and neat. So when the ban's lifted on Saturday, you'll see a brand new Instagram page. As for YouTube as well, I'm not going to upload any more to YouTube. I've had a good think about this, and to be fair, it's a lot of work I have to put in building the video, adding the images. It adds a couple of hours of work every episode, and I feel you have to do that on YouTube because you can't leave the app and go looking at anything else. So rather than it just being one image, I feel like you need to build images into it. But when you're listening on Spotify or Apple or Google or any decent podcast provider, you can go and have a look around in other apps on your phone. So again, if it's Instagram I'm dealing with most people, you can go and look these people up on Instagram and have a look at the images that we're talking about anyway. So that's where we're at. YouTube, I'm going to keep as it is. I'm not going to add any more to it. It's still there for some of the other, for the ones that have been uploaded and published already. I'm going to keep it there, but I'm not going to be adding any more to it. So Spotify, Apple, Google, Radio Republic, Pocket Casts, Overcast, all the casts. So any decent podcast provider, you can find it there. This week we have episode number 18, and we have Cristina Collins. Cristina is a bit of an all-rounder. Poet, musician, author, sports coach, teacher, a bit of everything. And she's been living in Cambodia for the last couple of years. So just wanted to have a chat around what that was like, what Southeast Asia is like in general, what the Cambodian people are like, the good and the bad, I suppose. So we have a good chat around that. And then her journey home, obviously COVID-19 kicked in and she wanted to get home, and she gives the reasons why and explains the difficulties that came with that journey. So I hope you enjoy the podcast, and catch you soon. Enjoy. Peace out.
That makes me higher than a motherfucker. Just rolling around, keeping in with the crowd, keeping it around for people this say.
And we're off. There we go. Nice and easy. So today I have Cristina. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not enjoying looking at my face on the screen. Can I just have your face? Is that possible?
I don't know. I don't even have a clue. That's the first time I've been asked that, so I don't know.
I have a certain allergy to looking at myself. I realize that's why I really don't like doing like Skype or whatever, is because I'm like, It's so unnatural to be looking at yourself while you're talking to somebody else, and it's just
pull the screen down slightly there, and we can just chat. Oh, there you go. There you go.
No,
so how are you keeping?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm just down in West Cork.
So you're home.
I'm home. Yeah, as you say.
Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah, I'm just. I've been very lucky. Like Mom, I was able to come into my own room, and I had like the ladder out the window to get in and out of the house that my dad set up for me, so I wouldn't have to be moving it in and out of the house because parents were very like paranoid about me coming home, obviously, and bringing something into the house. So it was 2 weeks upstairs, and like I did not come downstairs once for those 2 weeks.
And before that you were in Southeast Asia, right?
Yeah, in Cambodia. Yeah. So
and how long were you out there for?
A year and a half.
Wow. And what took you out there?
What took me out there is a good question. I don't really know. Like, I mean, I know what why I went there. I went there because my friend Karen was there. I didn't have, I was finished. I was kind of finished my first year in digital marketing, and I was like going to go into another job, and I was like, oh, if I stay around now, it's going to be like 2 or 3 years. I'll just be in Cork, which I loved being in Cork, but I was just like, oh, I think now is a good like time to go away if I'm going to go. So I was going to go to New Zealand first, and then my friend Karen was in Cambodia, and I was just like, and I knew a few people, so I was just like, fuck it, I'll just go to Cambodia.
Random place. And
Yeah.
is it, I mean, I've not been to Cambodia. I've been to Thailand a couple of times, and I've been to Southeast Asia. So I get an idea of the kind of lifestyle or what you perceive as a lifestyle when you're visiting there. But I mean, what's it like living there for a year and a half? It's very different to traveling, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like I was also not I'm not a backpacker, and I could never have gone backpacking. I like to like go live in a place and then explore from there. And I had, you know, I'm like communications officer in an international school. I wasn't working in a bar or anything. I was, even though that's, like that's grand or whatever, but out there, if you're going to be working in a bar, like you're literally not being paid. So you know, you're just doing it for the holiday. But no, it was great. Like, I mean, it was probably the safest I've ever felt in my life. It was, you know, nice and warm, but also a bit too hot. But like, I had this massive apartment, like massive, and I had this big balcony that overlooked this, you know, had this big sky view, and it was just like, I loved it. It was just so great.
The reason you came home was due to COVID-19, right? Or were you planning to come home anyway, or?
I was planning on coming home in May for a month for 2 weddings, but I had no intention of coming home. You know, I had like kind of pawned people off and like, yeah, I'll be home in September, or maybe Christmas, or maybe next year. It's kind of one of these places that you kind of say, oh, I'm just staying for another 6 months or another 3 months and blah, blah, blah. And then you're there 4 or 5 years, 10 years, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had no intention of coming home anytime soon.
What's the highlights, and what would you, I mean, if there's anyone that was toying with the idea of really going for it and moving to a totally different culture, what were the highlights of it?
So the highlights of Cambodia are definitely like the people are, and everyone will say this, they're just like amazing people. They're always smiling and having a laugh. Now they obviously have their problems, like anywhere, but they're just, you say that they're very like the Irish. Like if you were, and some of their music even, I'd be listening because they play karaoke all the time at full blast, like on the streets. Like you would just be, there wouldn't be a night of the week that I wasn't listening to like stereo music or like Khmer ballads through, you know, on the balcony. But I loved it. But I used to think sometimes that it was like Irish music, and I used to be like, these guys are the Ireland of Southeast Asia. They must be connected at some point. It's just very similar. And so there's that, and then there's just like, obviously it's much cheaper. You are, as a renter, you have kind of you have the pick a lot of the time of what kind of place you can get, and then traveling. So you're within stone's throw of like Vietnam, Thailand. If you don't want to leave the country, you have Kampot, you have Koh Kiev Island or Korong Sanlong, or you can go see elephants in Mulkiri, or you can go to Siem Reap and see like ancient Angkor Wat. You know, like it's
you've got everything. And are you city based?
I was always city based. Yeah. I did.
You can travel and
you can travel. You know, I think like a lot of people have this, you know, picture of the island with the hot and all that, and yeah, that's completely there. But I don't think that I could do it for too long. I'm just not. Not that I couldn't do it, but it looks ideal until you're there, and then you're there. You're not just visiting. You know, small town politics is everywhere. You know, country problems and all the rest. So you do have like, I loved going down there and like experiencing.
But then
kind of
getting
like,
back to a bit of normality as
yeah,
well. You know?
yeah, and structure and like I actually enjoyed that. I had, you know, the job was so structured 9 to 5, and then, well, not that I enjoyed that, but I'm saying that like that was better for me. Instead of being completely wild out there.
It doesn't give you Never Land, kind of. You get that normality to it.
Yeah.
And the way you're talking, it seems kind of it's all very much was rather than is. Are you planning on going back, or have you done that chapter?
I am planning on going back. I don't know what's in store though. You know, like even if I wanted to go back at this point, I cannot. You know, like you can't get on an airline, and even then, if I wanted to go back, would it be a wise choice for me to go back, considering they've no new cases for the last 14 days, miraculously. Right. And, you know, there's been 0 deaths, and everything is okay. And is
that always the way over there, though?
What do you mean? Like
are they, you know, in terms of, do they always look on the bright side and
look on the bright side
publicly as such? Like, you know, do the government feed you the good news? Or
they do feed you the good news, yeah. So like there's been like journalists arrested for spreading fake news and stuff, and you just don't want to be in a jail.
Certainly not. No.
Yeah, but so like for me, the reason I came home was coronavirus. But it was the biggest factor was that I would be stuck in the country, and potentially not being able to get home for, in my head, 6 months, a year, maybe even longer, and that didn't sit well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you and so kind of how are you keeping yourself busy, I suppose? So I know obviously we met through working in the bar trade back in the day, and then obviously we've gone off and done different things. But I see, like, you know, I remember poetry and music and photography and generally just art in general seems to be a big thing for you. What have you been working on anything new, or like, you know, in this time at the moment? What's your current kind of?
I'm working on a few things. And nothing at all. Do you know, like I have like I don't know. I mean, I'm writing a book, and I'm always writing songs, and I throw out a poem every now and then when it like comes, but
you don't work on it you don't see it as something that you want to. Have you not used this time that we're, you know, plenty of time for reflection and plenty of time to get creative? Has it not sparked? Is that something that you just always do anyway, that it's not changed much, or have you had more time to do it?
I think that was one of the big reasons I loved, you know, my life in Cambodia a lot, is because I had so much time, because there was very little taken up with, I don't know. I just had a lot of space, like physically and mentally and spiritually, we'll say. A lot of space for this kind of thing, and there was a very creative environment out there as well. But no, I definitely produced a lot more than I normally would, for sure. But I don't know. Like I don't know. I'm just, these things just happen. I'm not really. Yeah.
Sit down to work on it. It just comes to mind, and away you go. And then one thing that I saw that you were doing is these cards in quarantine. So obviously that's something that's kind of new. What's the idea behind that? I just spotted something on your social media, and it caught my eye, the cards in quarantine thing.
Yeah, I just literally came. So one of the girls over, she was my roommate. She was from housemate. She was from New York. So she was leaving. She left the week before me. And the week before she left, I was like, where are you going? You're so stupid. Like, why are you leaving? You shouldn't be leaving. And she was like, I have to go. My parents are leaving me go. The US canceled her grant, so she couldn't stay. So, well, she could stay, but she felt like, oh, maybe she should leave. So she left all these beautiful, like Chinese, there were not Chinese cards, they're cards that have Chinese artists painting on them. And I was just like, yoink, you know. So when I came home, I was like, what am I going to do with these? And I decided I would just give them away and but like write something in them and send them to people. So that's all.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Nice idea. Nice idea.
Yeah.
And then obviously we kind of looking at the poetry that you've done so far. There's been a couple of collections, is Addiction and Surrender. And I didn't mean it, Dav, was something that I read and I liked. I thought that was cool.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I did indeed. Yeah. Tell me about the idea behind it and where it came from and why you wrote that.
That was written right after Lyra McKee was killed in Londonderry, in Derry, in Derry, in it was like last April, was it? Maybe. So you know who she is?
No, tell me more.
So Lyra McKee, she was a journalist. She was a LGBT activist as well, but she was like an amazing journalist, and she got shot when she was reporting for her paper, whoever she worked for. And it was like a young 18-year-old Republican guy. And I just found, like, everyone found that so sad. You know, obviously throughout the entire country, people were mourning for her, and it was this whole thing. But my own journey has kind of been very much based on I've gone on a therapeutic journey, we'll say, and generational trauma is part of that. So like how mothers and fathers or grandparents, even, or great grandparents, pass on trauma that through the generations, not like directly like a bomb in the poem, but but in their actions, in their words, and how they treat each other. So for instance, I would consider like alcoholism in Ireland is a societal addiction problem resulting from 800 years of war, basically. So yeah. And then obviously that poem talks about how your man gives his son a bomb, and then that child then goes on to be he could have been either side. Like, it doesn't, in the poem, it doesn't say which side he's on, but yeah, so that's what the poem is kind of like based in. And yeah.
It's certainly, I mean, the generational pass on of these things, whether it be from it's through music that you listen to and anything and everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel in Ireland that the traditions are passed on quite well. Like, you know, everyone's proud to be Irish. Everyone, you know, is the tradition seems to pass with that though as well.
Mm-hmm.
And seems to be a theme. And I don't know, you know, I live in Ireland, you know, and I have done for a long time now. And I see it quite a lot, you know. It's something that there's positives in it, but there's negatives as well that come with that. And what I mean, for example, in Cambodia, let's go back to Cambodia. What's it like there as a society? That was hard to get out, wasn't it? As a society.
As a society.
It's very different to the Western world. What religion is mainly kind of practiced there, if any, or what's it?
So Buddhism is mainly practiced. There's a whole variety, but their Buddhism is very cultural, I would say. Sort of like, I suppose, what it is here. But I wouldn't have said like, oh, I don't know. It's hard to really comment on that because I don't know too much about it. How their politics is arranged is like, you know, the big strong man at the top of the structure, who was a defector during the Khmer Rouge time. at last minute, you know. Oh man, I actually turns out I'm on your side. Oh, look at that. And who knew?
Yeah.
Brainwashed. And he has been in power for the last whatever how many since basically. And what actually struck me was like, you know, there's corruption and blah 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 like everywhere else, but I was like, oh, this is the same. This is the same, only their corruption is just more obvious. Like ours in the West is just very like sneaky, like, oh, I'm saying this, but I'm doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's
My
even like
best friend's cousin owns that business, so I can get
yeah,
that. Whereas there, it's probably that's my brother. There you go.
yeah, exactly. Even things like I thought like this is just my own brain doing this, but I thought like even like the rubbish, like there's rubbish everywhere, especially in the city. Like the canals are full of plastic and the rest of it. And I think, you know, you often see those articles online like, oh, Southeast Asia and China are like the biggest producers of plastic or whatever, or, you know, polluters. And it's like, well, they're taking in our plastic, you know, they're processing it. We're very, I think in the West, we're very like, put things under the carpet, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that was like interesting for me. But then what would they're very superstitious as well, you know.
Okay.
Very superstitious. Like they have corona scarecrows out at the moment. Which they also have in Thailand as well. You should look them up. They're I actually have some screenshots of some. I'll send them to you. They're
Coronavirus scarecrows.
Yeah. And so like they're really scary looking, and they just like, you know, they've machetes or whatever, and you put them out in the front of the house, and they're to ward off
coronavirus coming.
Yeah.
There you go.
They believe in ghosts.
And is that to warn off the virus or people with the virus, or both?
I suppose both, but I think it's meant to be for the virus, like and like the deep, you know, whatever. Yeah, not necessarily
the spirit that they feel.
Yeah, the spirit. Yeah.
It's like when they said here there a few weeks back. They were saying, "Oh, we're considering opening the schools 1 day a week." I was like, "Coronavirus take a day off on a Thursday, does it? Like, what the fuck are you on about? You can't do that." Like, so, thankfully they're not doing that. But I'm sure the coronavirus sees that scarecrow and turns around.
I know.
Like,
I know, but it's what else? Like, now could I
suppose because the Buddhist religion and in general is quite spiritual over there anyway, right? You know, and so everything will have some sort of way of stopping it from entering your house, no matter what it be in their eyes, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's you know, very much a ghost culture out there as well. You know, like, you know, if there's something wrong, it's because there's a ghost, and there's shamans, and you know, this kind of stuff. So that's you know, yeah.
Is that the norm?
It is quite normal. Yeah, it is quite normal. But just let people believe what they want to believe, kind of thing.
Yeah, of course.
You know. But yeah, it is.
Do you the group of people that you would have been close with over there? Were they all kind of expats, or in Thailand they call them phalangs? I don't know what the word is in Cambodia. Farang, is it?
Yeah.
Farang. Is it mostly kind of Westerners that you hang around with, or?
Yeah. Fortunately, though, it is kind of like, unfortunately, it happens. You know, like anywhere you go, you're going to attract like for like, and you know, whatever that means. But like I worked with Khmer girls in my office, so that, you know, I was a bit more unusual to some people in that, like, I had far more Khmer friends or colleagues than a lot of people did. But we also, you know, I played in the local GA club out there.
Okay.
So there was
a local GA club in Cambodia.
Yeah, there is, and most of the team is Cambodian.
Ah, well, that's different. Yeah, I was a friend of mine came on. Owen Doyle came on one of the episodes. He was in Hong Kong and then when the riots happened, he left and went over to Australia to land in the middle of the bushfires. But he was playing GA and a bit of rugby over in Hong Kong. But I don't think there was many locals kind of getting involved. It was very much, the Irish lads that were living over there. So for you to kind of have a team over there and it be a lot of Cambodians on the team, how did they adapt and find that sport? Was that something that you kind of introduced to them, or was it something that was already set up way before you arrived?
I think so. It was actually interesting because the boys are different from the girls, but in the way that like girls don't have sports, really don't play sport. There's no girl sports there, and the boys sports is very limited. So they don't have like, as far as I'm aware, there's no like Phnom Penh kids team, like clubs. There is like expat clubs that do play soccer, and there is like obviously teams of Cambodians, but it's not like, the way here there's a big network. There's a big network of games and stuff. But the girls like literally never played on a team sport, so you were having to teach like 15 to 20-year-old women, what to do in training, which was very frustrating because you'd be like, go over there and line up or whatever. And obviously in your fucking Cork accent too, like how they expect to understand you, like, but you'd be like, we're playing, just a basic thing, like we're doing a relay, and it'd be like, oh, then you find out, oh, they've never played, never done a relay before, so your ignorance is kind of like laid bare to you as well, whilst you're like fuming as well, so you're like angry at yourself for being a dick, it's just like So
it's mad, isn't it? Yeah. And again, it's something that we have to adapt to more than them. It's just the norm for them, and you're asking them to come right out of their comfort zone when.
But they were great. There was one girl, Ava. She was just superstar. She went and she came with us to both to two what's it called, tournaments. So the first tournament we went to, we had to get a load of them passports, and a lot of them don't even have birth certs. Is that correct? I think that's correct.
Yeah.
So you have to go and get them birth certs, and sometimes their birth certs, if they do have them, will be wrong. And to get them birth certs, you have to go back to where, we didn't do it. We facilitated this, but like it's such an ordeal. And to go back to where, their parents are from, to get like, it's like fucking Jesus of Nazareth taking the census, like I swear. And they had to get passports, and we were sending off for the passports still weren't back, and there was some amount of calls put in because and bribery, basically. There was like brown envelopes all over the gaff because we were, it's very much like, oh, it'll take a week. Oh, well, here's a 50 euro note. Will it take a day now? It's like, oh, look at that. Yeah, it's taking a day.
Yeah.
So bureaucracy.
And that's the norm over there as well, yeah?
Yeah, it's fun. I went to get like a visa one time from this visa guy, and he goes, oh, that'll be like $80 and $10 for the corruption. Like, it was just, I thought it was very funny how...
the openness.
Yeah, the openness. He was like, well, it's true. Like, if the police pull you over on your bike, you're like, oh no, please no, and they're like, oh no, we're taking your bike, and you're like, oh, $5 or 10, whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, off you go. It would be nice sometimes if that was the case here.
Yeah.
Here's a $5, bye, feck off.
Here's a $5, sorry about the speed in there, no. Yeah. All good. Okay, and so what's next? Have you got any plans? What are you going to do? We're coming up to the kind of 25-minute, half an hour mark, so that's how normally these have ran for. So, what are you What are you going to do next? Obviously, you want to go back to Cambodia, but we don't know how long that's going to be. Any plans?
No.
Any ideas?
I don't really make plans, I don't think, and I get stressed out when I think about things. So, I suppose I should tell you a little bit about how the ordeal of getting home, which is why you contacted me in the first place.
Yeah. And again, I just weren't sure what, because when you're going back, and sometimes I'm like, what do these people want to let out, and what don't they want to let out?
Oh, yeah.
I know that ordeals can sometimes have, Go on, anyway, tell us.
Yeah. Shut up, Nick.
Oh, she said she'd do it. Just don't talk her out of it.
No, so right, literally myself and another friend of mine have been watching the situation since it kind of cropped up in early or late January. And there was, we had 3,000 people come from Wuhan directly in January for Chinese New Year. And we had people go and come back. So it was Chinese New Year when the news broke about this coronavirus. People still weren't taking it very seriously, but it was starting to get loose in Wuhan. So we were like, oh shit, what's going on? And our school thankfully took really good measures where they shut the school down, and then it was temperature check and traveling history ban, basically. So if you'd been to China during New Year, or if you'd been out of the country in the last 14 days, you couldn't come to school for 14 days if you'd been to China. And so we were taking it quite seriously, and then the government were taking it seriously, and then there was a case, and it was just there's a case, oh no. And then there was no more cases, so but we were still doing the temperature checks and making sure everyone was okay. And it was a really hectic situation because it was 3,000 kids nearly, another 500 staff. So they had to be checked every single day, given hand sanitizer. And this was in a time where it wasn't in the rest of the world; it was just in China, basically. And so I had a friend who put me onto this scientist on Twitter, Ian McKay, PhD. And so I was just in it, I'm mad about politics and this kind of stuff. So I was just listening to podcasts every single day and listening to and researching articles and blah, blah, blah. And things were popping up. And people were just like, no, it's not, this is just the flu, you're overreacting or whatever. And me and my friend Tommy were just he was on Reddit and I was on Twitter, looking for news articles and studies and all of this
Any
stuff.
sort of info you could get.
Yeah, watching looking at what these scientists were saying between each other, because you were just looking at another world, basically. They're talking to each other about R value and blah blah blah, and you're just okay.
What does that value mean? Yeah,
don't know. But they're saying it's bad, so okay, we're gonna listen to them. And he was look at these videos. They're barricading people into their houses. This is not normal. There was pictures coming out of these guys with the guns on the street, with washing down the street. So we just knew that it was kind of serious. And I became, obviously then it started to hit over here, and and then the schools started to close. Our schools closed when there was a case in a school. So we were quite happy, but also I became increasingly worried about the economic situation that was happening or that would happen because of the impact. Because there's something I think it's 800,000 people, maybe I'm wrong, who are working in factories. And then, so the knock-on effect of the supply chains was going to mean that there's thousands of people out of work. The tourism industry was drying up. And these are people who are so poor, and there's no social safety net, zero, nothing. Right.
So these people are going to have to turn to something once there's no income, right?
Right. Or the hospitals, I had to help someone in hospital over, and when you go into the public hospital, you have to come in and feed them. We had to pay someone in the ward to wash the guy. They didn't pass notes from one nurse to the other. They didn't give him any medication. It wasn't until this guy that we were looking after started to like have fever and palpitations. This was like ages ago now. We were like, oh my God, like there's something, we forgot to give him medicine. It's like, okay, what's the medicine? It's like, oh, it's this. We don't have it though. It's like, oh, we'll go buy it. You know, so we had to go to a pharmacy and buy it ourselves. So like, I, having experienced that, knew that like the medical.
If you are not going to get sick there. I am not hanging around to get sick here.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But we thought then, well, we also had health insurance, so we were like, oh, this is fine. Like, but it turns out health insurance was like, oopsie, we don't cover pandemics, so you have to go to the public hospital anyway. So I was just like, oh fuck, like. And I had to
get me out of here.
Yeah. Well, no, I wasn't, because I was like, I want to stay, especially when we were at home. I am on my balcony playing the guitar, break time in my house. Like, where do I want to be? Like, I don't want to be anywhere else. Like, but what happened was, it was they closed the schools, and the guy who had the case was like Austrian, and then they had a ban from Germany, UK, and France, I think it was. Germany, UK, Iran at the same time. So then there was stranger danger towards white people.
Yeah, right, okay.
So I was just like, this isn't good. Like, this, I'm not very comfortable with this, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, my friend Jesse as well, he was like, we're going to make so much music. He has like the studio in his house. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to make so much music with you, Jesse. Like, yay. And like, you telling myself, like, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. And I just had this like, I'm feeling it now, actually, when I'm talking about it. My body was just like pins and needles all over me, and just like in an acute anxiety like state.
Yeah.
And I'd never experienced it before, and I wasn't really mentally bad. It was just more like my body was doing this thing, and I was
telling
just
you
like,
no, like that.
Exactly, you know. And I have not been a good person to listen to myself at all my entire life. Hence why I'm writing a collection called Addiction. You know, like.
But did you listen this time?
So eventually, what happened was they closed the border with Vietnam, and I was like, meh, you know, alarm bells. My friend Tommy left, and he was just like, I'm gone. I was just like, no, where are you going? He was just like, I don't want to be stuck. We're going to be stuck. And I was just like, no. Airlines were, you know, the flights were drying up. I had like the embassy guy from the Irish embassy in Hanoi, because we don't have an embassy in Cambodia, telling me like, you have 10 days if you want to leave the country. You have 10 days. I was just like, oh. And then it was like a Thursday afternoon, and I went over making the music, man, you know, because we were in lockdown. It was going to be isolation. And my friend was just saying like, oh no, these are all the reasons that it's fine. And I was like, these are all the reasons that it's fine.
The reason you wanted to hear,
Yeah, exactly. You're so reassuring, thank you. And then like 10 minutes later, like, ah! But it was, we went to help this girl with her piano, and she was saying that she was leaving.
Anything for the music. I'll do anything for the music.
Yeah. She was leaving because the post office was not accepting like posts from 7 major countries. And I was just like, what? And she needed this for her business. And I was like, okay, well, that's not good. Because, and she was, you know, if you're in a country that's you can't get out of, is economically fucked, people are competing for resources. You can't even get a passport if you what if you lose your passport?
Yeah.
All like it was just, to me, a system that was so important. Like, your postal system, your communication system is the most important thing. They're already censoring the internet, and now it's not available. There's no healthcare system. So what's going on? So I was also after, you know, so I was like acutely aware of everything in my environment. And I went home with the piano. My friend, he'd gone the other way, and I told my other friend, I was like, I'm going home. And he was like, why? I was like, the post office. He was just like, what? And I was like, the post
Final
office,
nail.
man. The post office. You don't understand about the post office. They shut the border, exports, economy, man, you know. And he was just like, okay, like, cool. I was like, you should go. And he was like, okay, like, enjoy. And I went home. I booked a flight. I texted my other friends telling them I booked a flight. Then I wake up Saturday. My flight was for Sunday. I was already packed that night. Like, that was Thursday night. I was sorting things out. Waking up 4 o'clock in the morning, pacing my room like in circles. Even though I'd booked the flight, I still wasn't sitting my body.
Until you were sat on it, like anything could happen between now and then. Yeah.
Yeah, and the embassy guy had been so good because he had like told me like, oh, you know, oh no, I had been in contact with the CEO of EasyJet, the CCO of EasyJet, because I had also, I'm such a good Samaritan, I had helped his friend's son in hospital a couple of months earlier because he'd fell out of a bunk bed in Siem Reap and had to go into brain surgery. So I had this guy's contact, so I was just like, hi.
Hello.
How are you? Can you please let me know what I tell me what I should do? Like, and he was like, fly into London. Make sure you fly into London. I was like, grand. So I had all the information. And the embassy guy was going, you're just gonna, I'll just be afraid that your flight from Phnom Penh to Malaysia would be cancelled. And I was like, me too. You know, like,
yeah.
But like, he was amazing. And Saturday morning I woke up, did a bit of a meditation to get myself like a bit more centered and like calm down. And I looked at my email, flight cancelled.
Oh shit.
And I was just like, bah! Like,
what do I do now?
So I got the card. I was like couldn't book a flight to anywhere. I wouldn't accept my card, and I was freaking out. Then eventually, I texted him, the embassy guy, and I booked a flight to Singapore and then Malaysia at $200. And because if I could get to Malaysia, I could get my flight to London. And then he was like, oh, let me check. So, you know, in Europe where you go to France, in the EU, if you go to France and you leave the airport to get your bag and like go into the airport again, it's not a problem. Yeah. But like if you wanted to go to Spain, right, and you had a connecting flight, that's a problem in countries where there's no freedom of movement because you are outside of the country. You are in the country when you are not, when you cross immigration, which had never fucking came into my head. Like the first time I came to Cambodia, I was like, you want me to fill out a form? What? Why? What's going on? I felt, you know, I didn't understand what was happening.
Yeah.
And so, because I'd technically be leaving the airport going to Malaysia, and Malaysia had banned any foreigners going in, I couldn't get into Malaysia. At this point as well, you couldn't get into Thailand. And he told me that beyond Sunday, I couldn't get a flight through Bangkok because they wanted a COVID negative test and a insurance for up to 100,000 that would cover COVID as well. So nobody had that. So if you're transiting through the airport, you were not and so loads of people were flying into Bangkok to try and get home and be turned around. Like, it was insane.
Shit.
So I was just like, oh, okay. So he was like, look, he called me up. He's like, maybe there'll be an an evacuation flight. And I was just like, I actually can't stay here in this state that I'm in, a day longer. I have to go. So I tried about 4 or 5 different flights and none of them would accept my card. It was so weird. And anyway, eventually I booked my flight. It was for that evening. This was 1 o'clock. I still hadn't seen any of my friends before. So this was Saturday afternoon. And I text my friends being like, I booked a flight. It's for 7. I'm going to leave. I'm leaving today. So they were all like, oh, fuck, like shit. And I went over to my friend Jesse's house, gave him the keys to my house because there's a few things he needed to pick up. I saw him, say goodbye to him. And then I went to the airport. And I was honestly so afraid then of, like, I was going through Hong Kong with Cathay Pacific and then on to London. I was so afraid of not getting the flight in Phnom Penh, and then when I was in Hong Kong, for that to be cancelled as well. So it wasn't until I was on the flight on the way to London, because as soon as I was in London, it was fine, because even if I had to swim, you know, like
you'd get there, like
I'd be there, you know, or I have, you know, I'll be all right. But
you'd be grand,
yeah, and it was just like, I suppose the reason I left is because I couldn't stay, not because I wanted to leave.
There was no way, after kind of when you sum it up and add up all those kind of factors, that you were staying. No way, like no one would.
No.
When you've got the safety net of home, of healthcare, you know, and a postal service. You know, at least the post is still running.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can. I think I've seen that.
Have you got stuff back there that you need to go and collect, or?
Not really. So I'm quite good. I'm like a one suitcase kind of person. So I packed everything into one suitcase. I had to leave quite a lot. I had to leave like 2 guitars behind, an amp, a speaker system that I gave to my friend or whatever. But yeah. So there was a lot of material stuff that I could have, you know, it was probably like $1,000 worth of stuff kind of thing. And then between the flights, I also had another flight. So I had booked, I paid for 2 flights and then another flight, so that I missed, that's in May. So between the entire thing, it was like probably 3,000 that it cost, you know?
Yeah. But still, you're home, you're safe, and you can always go back, you know, maybe in the future.
Exactly. Well, I'm hoping to anyway. Like, it's definitely, you know, I have the means and definitely the desire to go back, and it would be fantastic even to do a shorter stint. I think just to, you know, it feels like a little bit like it was snatched from under my feet.
Unfinished business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, listen, I've really enjoyed the chat. Thank you very, very much for coming on today. And wishing you all the best. And I will, I'll put some, like we discussed, I'll add some of the images that you sent as we're discussing to the video. And all good. Thanks very much.
See you later.
Take care. Peace out.
You. Bye.
Bye-bye.